Hey, this is Brian Medeiros with Otherwise, and you're watching Behind the Kit.
Here I am in nature, because that's what Brian would have wanted. Thanks for tuning in. You want to know what some of these questions are? Here we go. How do you join a band? Are you a better drummer if you're playing complicated things or simple things? Is it better to know all the answers or find them out as you go? Do you want to learn? Do you want to grow? Have you ever met Brian Medeiros? He's the most positive guy on the planet.
Guys, we're here at the Met Show yet again. This time we are interviewing Brian from Otherwise.
Hey!
Thanks so much for doing this for me, Brian.
Of course, man.
We've known each other for a while.
Yeah.
Like a decade or so.
Or so, dude, longer than that.
Yeah.
Playing, remember Outer Rim days?
Oh, yeah, of course.
That was like way more than 10 years ago.
That's true. Ted Shoop, man.
Yeah.
And you guys play the circuit, though?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was the first show I ever played, was
Yeah,
at the circuit.
me too.
Yeah.
So, all right, so for anybody who's never heard Otherwise, explain them.
Well, it's kind of a crazy thing, like how that all came about and how I was introduced to them. It was like 7 years ago. Chris Howarth from In This Moment posted on Facebook saying there's this up and coming band from Vegas looking for a drummer, and at that time, I was living in Utah, and they're a Vegas-based band, and I wasn't even 21 yet. But I was like, heck, I'm gonna reach out to him and at least see, just why not?
Yeah.
And so we were talking for a couple months, and then just because of those factors of me being out of state and under 21, it just didn't make a whole lot of sense. So they went with a really, really great drummer, and they started doing some really cool things, and they got signed to a major label, and we're on these festivals and all these tours. And the thing that really stood out to me with them is that there's just so much passion in what they do. Like, with talking with them personally, they're great guys, and they just bleed so much passion into the lyrical content, the honk honk, just everything they exude on stage is just like passion, and that resonates with my soul tremendously. So I was following them for a few years, and a couple years ago when the opportunity came up, when their other drummer was leaving, I reached out and I was like, hey, I don't know if you remember me, but this is what I've been up to over the last few years. And we just kind of started doing stuff. I never had an audition. I actually first met them at NAMM a few years ago and immediately jumped on stage and played a show with them. And the next day we were in studio writing new stuff. So it was just kind of like game on from there. It was just so crazy. But yeah, it's kind of newer, modern rock, and we're kind of experimenting a little bit. And on the latest album, Sleeping Lions, we have some tracks like Beautiful Monster and Dead in the Air that have a little bit more like electronic elements. It's still like rock and roll and everything, but it's just trying to keep it new and fresh and current, and just kind of in our own beings trying to expand on what has already been done.
Do you trigger that electronic stuff live, or do you guys play that song live?
Yeah, I have my iPad, which has the samples in it with certain sounds and things that we can't replicate live that are essential parts of what makes up the song. It's mainly just atmospheric. It's not so much like what's the show. We're still a four-piece rock and roll band, just going crazy on the stage. But
Yeah, nice. So in regards to Sleeping Lions, how would you describe that record?
I think because I was a fan of Otherwise before I was a member, I think it still has that Otherwise sound to it, just good old rock and roll. But Adrian's got a unique, powerful voice that he has quite a range to it, and you still can tell it's an Otherwise record, but there are some of those newer elements that keep it a little bit current and kind of foreshadow what we're trying to do for the next release, which we're actually going to be I'm in Salt Lake right now, my home. I don't get to stay here. I got to go back to Vegas. We're going to jump in studio like tomorrow. So we're already jumping into some new stuff. And so, yeah, the Sleeping Lions kind of foreshadows what, the progression that we're trying to make as musicians, and, the evolution of Otherwise and what it is.
Yeah. I heard a lot of stories about Rush back in the day, They would go into the studio, make their album, tour. While they're touring, they write their next record, go back to the studio, and just repeat it for decades.
Yeah.
Is that kind of how you guys are doing
Yeah,
it?
for sure. Yeah, Ryan and Tony are brilliant with Logic, and so they're always, just laying down some ideas. And they'll, when I am home, I have an electronic kit that I can just plug it into my computer and just send them stuff back and forth. So it's super easy to write, even being in different states. And while we're on the road, we're always, whenever we have time, downtime, when we're not sleeping, or
Yeah.
it gets brutal to try to find the time on the road sometimes. But there's always creative juices flowing that we want to get out. So always staying busy.
What is your approach to the drum tracks? How do you come about writing your parts?
It's really collaborative on everybody's parts. Like everybody kind of has input on, I'll be like, what if the guitar did this? Ryan will be like, how about if the vocals did this? We all kind of just try to make it the best it can be as a whole. We're not each playing our own parts and then just kind of putting those together. We're trying to make it as cohesive as it can be. So I try to listen to what everybody else is doing, and in previous projects I've been in and previous years of playing, I felt like I've overplayed a little bit, where it's cool and kind of satisfying on a personal level, but it's not really as effective for the song. So kind of sometimes holding back a little bit, just kind of a less is more approach, just hits harder and means a little bit more.
I'm pretty sure that overplaying is like just something you have to do in
Yeah.
your drum career, just to get it out of you.
Exactly.
And then you can get to the good stuff after that.
Right. And then, in live, I'll, elaborate on a few fills and kind of go a little bit more crazy than I would, which makes our live show a little bit different than the album. You don't want to go see a band and it's just like you hit play on an album. You want it to be a little bit different. So, we try to keep it fresh and keep it real rock and roll,
What's your warm-up routine?
Usually about an hour or 45 minutes before we hit the stage, I start with just stretching. I'll do reaching out and touching the floor, reaching up to the sky, and arms over, just trying to really work out my shoulders and my forearms, and my hands quite a bit, because I say a lot too.
That's fine.
But mostly right here, it gets a little tight. So I've had some lessons with Jason Bittner and with Dirk Verburen and Troy Laketta, and I ask them what are their warm-up routines, and I've kind of learned some things from them, and just from my own body of like, this hurts, what can kind of stretch out that part of me. So I'll kind of figure it out. But I work on my hands a lot, because when I don't, they start to hurt, and that takes my focus away from where it should be when I'm playing. So I stretch for a good 20 minutes or so, and then I pick up sticks, and I don't think I necessarily like go through specific rudiments or anything. I'll doubles and parallels, just like whatever I can to get me moving.
So when you're at home and you're practicing, how do you incorporate practices and exercises you do at home into your stuff with otherwise?
It's so weird, because like when you're on tour, you're playing the same stuff every night, which is great, but when I get home, it's weird to just play, to kind of be creative and think outside of the box. So usually when I'm getting ready for tour, like a week before, when I'm at home, I'll play through the songs and everything, and then I get down to Vegas, and then we'll do like a pre-production kind of, get ready for tour. We'll do some rehearsals. But when I'm home, I just try to be creative and think outside of my norm, because I get stuck in these, the same fills and the same grooves and the same, even like tempos and time signatures. I try to just think a little bit differently, and sometimes apply that to, the new things we're writing. Just trying to keep myself fresh and always learning and building,
So where did you get the idea or inspiration for your live performance? Because it's very unique.
Well, thanks. Music and drums is me. That's the only thing I've ever wanted to do for the 16 years that I've been playing. And the first time I saw Motley Crue and just seeing Tommy Lee just like freak out, but he's like so solid. His arms are going everywhere. He's throwing sticks everywhere. I think Tommy Lee and Ricky Rocket from Poison were like two of the biggest influences for just like showmanship along with performance. Because I would be back in the Outer Rim days, I'd be so focused on playing that it would just be I was just like stern faced and just like focused, and everybody's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like,
"I'm having a great time." Why?
Yeah.
But
famous drummer face.
Yeah. And so I kind of realized that, and in the effort to, not feel stagnant in my playing, I started looking at those other influences, and I was like, I want to try to move a little bit more. And in high school, I had a bunch, like mainly my senior year, I had a bunch of music classes. So I would just sit on a practice pad and just throw sticks and twirl sticks and just try to play, but, be creative with, not just up and down. I was trying to like twirl it and throw it for just hours and hours every day. And so like the bands I was in at that time, I would, feel comfortable with what I was playing and then try to incorporate some like stick throws and whatever. And I just kind of evolved over the years, trying to do a little bit more and more, just challenging myself to be as solid as I can when I'm playing, but still try to like perform a little bit. So I'm like just having a good time throwing my hair around and throwing sticks. And if I mess up, I just kind of smile it off and try not to get too bogged down in, oh man, I messed up and everybody noticed, kind of thing. Just having fun with it.
Yeah, that's cool. What drum track that you've written are you most proud of? Let's do first from the album, Sleeping Lions, and then from all of your work
just
together.
All of work?
Yeah.
That's tough, because I just like to play, man.
I like to play.
And there's so many, like I've been a part of so many different genres, it's really hard to pick. But one that I really, really enjoy playing from Sleeping Lions is the title track, Sleeping Lions. It's just kind of different. It's not really fast. It's just kind of like held back and in the groove, which is kind of not my norm, So it's just fun to kind of sit in it, and it allows a lot of room for kind of throwing sticks and throwing my hair around and just having fun with it.
Yeah.
And, there's just a good energy to that song. As a whole, though, I'm really, really proud of some of the stuff that we wrote with Never Before. That probably Shame would be one that I know kind of pushed myself quite a bit to, it's a little bit faster and just has a good groove to it. And then in the verse, it has like an off time, kind of thing, and I'm finding ways to throw sticks and whatever. So I don't know, just always challenging myself.
I'll see if I can find the MySpace link for that.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
I'm sure it's still there.
Oh, MySpace.
Who are your main drum influences?
When I started out, it was Neil Peart. A lot of drummers when they started out was Neil Peart, but it's for a great reason. He's an amazing, versatile player. And one thing that really spoke to me is I had some of his drum DVDs and everything. Even with him being one of the greatest drummers of all time, he still at one point realized that he can get better. And so he started learning jazz. Like he just totally broke down his whole technique, how his kit was set up. And like, he's like, I want to be better. And I was like, that's awesome. Yeah. Like even Neil freaking Peart, like he just always wants to be better. So that really spoke to me and inspired me when I was younger. And then I started looking to guys like Tommy Lee and Ricky Rocket and Mike Portnoy and Virgil Donati. And when I was in high school, we did, in jazz band and everything, there's Buddy Rich and, there's just the greats really. And I wouldn't necessarily say I have a favorite drummer now, but I'm trying to find influence from anywhere I can, really. There's so many good players out there in performance and just being a solid drummer. And I really like the less is more approach. If you're just a solid drummer, that's usually more impressive to me than just just fast, intricate stuff, which is still cool and like I'm all about
it. Has its
but
place.
But in my direction, in my path, I'm finding just the like super solid, but with a little bit of flair in there is really interesting to me. And
so if you could take lessons from any drummer, who would it be? Dead or alive?
Dead or alive. I don't know. There's Luke Holland nowadays is just blowing up. He's a brilliant dude. I think it'd be really cool to sit down with him, and I think I could really learn quite a bit from him. So,
Nice. What music have you been listening to, as you've kind of grown through this Sleeping Lions tour and in and out of the studio? Is there anything that's kind of consistent throughout your regimen, or?
I don't know. My iPod's crazy. Or just like when I'm listening to music online, it's like gets random. I'll be listening to like Katy Perry, and then it'll go to like Demi Borgir, and then it'll go to like Paris, and then it'll go to, I don't know. Like I don't like to get stuck in one genre where I'm just like focused on, I like to keep it where it's bouncing all over, because that keeps my mind busy and finding inspiration from all over. But one band that I haven't listened to for too terribly long, 30 Seconds to Mars, over the last couple of years is really kind of, I don't know, they've become one of my favorite bands, just because, again, it comes down to, I really feel a lot of passion in what they do, and what they do on stage and what they do in studio is just incredible to me. And I saw them last year side stage, and it just blew my mind. They're a huge band, but like they're still like genuine, and it's still a real show. It's not just like push play and then it's the same every night.
Yeah.
Like Jared's super involved with the crowd, and he's just, I don't know, there's a lot of passion that really resonates with me.
Tell me something you wish you knew 10 years ago about the drums or the music business in general.
I'm glad I learned what I did when I did. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, just because, all the failures that I've had, all of the, the hard times, it led me to where I am, and it's, they're all learning experiences that you can take and grow from. It teaches you in perspective and patience and persistence, and just always got to stay on the grind. I don't want any shortcuts. I don't want to, somebody to hand me anything. I want to get dirty and like do it,
Yeah.
and achieve it myself. So I don't know. I kind of like the path of all the good and the bad that I've been through to get me where I am and where I want to go. So I certainly don't feel like I've made it. I don't want to ever feel like I've made it, because there's always more. There's always another level to, as a human and of course professionally. So.
So what do you think has been your biggest accomplishment?
I don't know, everything with Otherwise has been great, because it's been a higher level in the music industry than I've experienced before. It's kind of just like diving in head first, doing like these festivals and this series of touring, and as support for bigger names or where we're headliners. It's all a learning experience every day, and it gets tough. Like, there's so much literally blood, sweat, and tears that goes into what we do. And I'm just really proud to be where I am and to be with these guys. Even when it is hard, we have a really good way of, kind of finding a common ground and getting past it. And I can't express, I feel in a sense like I'm still a fan. I'm like playing in the band, but I'm so stoked when we're doing festivals. I'm like, oh my God, I get to play with the Perfect Circle, or I get to play with, this festival where Ozzy's singing Bark at the Moon during the eclipse. Like, there's just Shiprocked was insane. So I get to do all these insane experiences, and I'm just so appreciative to be where I am and to be doing it with guys like this. They're so great. They're just hearts of gold, man.
Yeah.
So.
Is there anybody you've met through those experiences that stands out as far as like drummers or somebody you've looked up to for a long time?
Yeah, there's a lot of bands that I've listened to for a long time that we'll play shows with or series of shows with, and it's, some of them are good experiences, and it's nice to be like, cool, I'm so glad I met them. But some of them, I'm not gonna name names or anything, but like it's kind of disheartening just being on, peeking behind the veil that is the industry or the rock and roll curtain or however you want to say it. Like, I know sometimes it can be a little disheartening because it's not as it's made out to be, and certain people can be certain ways off stage. So you just kind of got to take it for what it is and still enjoy the music for what it is rather than letting that taint it too much,
Yeah,
so.
For sure. What's your favorite thing on your kit right now?
I love my kit. Like, I don't know. Like, I have a DW Collector's Maple kit. I have a couple, and the one that I'm playing tonight that I've been playing for last year. I got a little bit bigger sizes than my previous DW kit, and I'm just loving it. And I get tons of compliments on it, which means a lot because I hear it a certain way from behind the kit, so I don't really know how it's sounding outside. But people are like, "It sounds great," and I'm like, "That's good to hear," because like it looks great and it sounds great, and it's super reliable. So yeah, it's a 22 by 20 kick, and then 13 by 9, there's 13 by 10 rack, and then a 16 by 16 floor. So they're a little bit bigger than standard sizes. It's just like big rock and roll drums that still have attack, but it's still like a lot of body to it.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I love everything DW does.
Yeah.
The hardware is just so reliable. I've never had issues with it. So, when we're gigging so much and it's just like throwing stuff in the trailer and then just onto the next and then onto the next, like it totally stands up every night. So
yeah. And then you just got a bunch of Meinls.
Yeah.
How are those?
They're awesome. I wasn't stoked on the previous cymbals that I was using, but I've heard a lot of good things about Meinl, and any that I've played or any that I've heard about people talking about Meinl as a company and just as a product, just seems so great. A lot of my favorite drummers nowadays that I'm looking up to are using Meinl, so I was like, that just kind of seems to be the way to go. I don't ever like to feel like I'm stagnant or plateauing in any aspect of my life, and I kind of felt like I was as far as my cymbals were concerned. And I'm very concerned about the gear that I'm playing with, how it feels and how it sounds and how reliable it is. So I felt like it was kind of lacking, so I was looking for something else, and so far it's been great working with Meinl and just playing on them every night. I'm just like smiling at them. I'm just like, this is so cool. They sound so good. They look so good. And like, I don't know, I'm so pumped on them.
Is there a specific series you got, or is it just kind of an array of a bunch of
It's mostly
ones?
the Byzants. And then there's some of the, I can't remember I'm kind of new to the whole like Meinl line, so I'm not super familiar. But most of them are Byzants. But pure alloy, that's what it is. The hi-hats and my main crash right here. And those ones are just crisp, and they're good. I looked at what Luke Holland was playing, and he has those, and I was like, I like how they sound, so let's try them out. And
nice.
They're killer. So
yeah, I've got Byzant's China, and then another Meinl crash. I don't recall what it is, and then I've got Soultones, I've got Sabian, and out of all of them so far, I'm more impressed by Meinl.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, there's good stuff all out. Exactly. There's good stuff throughout every company, but like, I don't know, the research I put into it and what I've experienced firsthand, like the consistency seems to be more impressive with Meinl than anything else I've really played. So I'm excited to continue playing them. I have no issues. So.
Yeah. And what's your biggest drum malfunction?
Fortunately, I haven't had anything major happen yet. But say because it's it's bound to happen one day where everything's just gonna fall apart. And I'll have to figure it out. I've broken heads and stuff while I've been playing, but I always have a backup scenario so I can just switch it out. But I try to switch out my heads every couple of weeks when I'm on tour so they stay fresh. So always checking over everything before I set up and even after I tear down, just to kind of see how my stuff's doing. And don't want to run into those issues,
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, there you got it here. Brian with Otherwise. Thanks again, man.
Dude, thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
Seriously.
Thanks so much for watching this interview. The next one is going to be my first podcast. That is with John Schwartz from Weird Al Yankovic, and the next one will be from Craig Blundell of Stephen Wilson. So make sure you check those out on podcast formats everywhere.
Broken, but I won't